Hi, very glad to see you on the channel. Before you start listening to the story, write in the comments whether you like the voice on the video. Folks say nothing much changes in small-town Georgia, but I've learned that's not true. The shifts are just quieter, slower. They happen in looks that linger too long, in routines that drift off course, in silences that start meaning more than words. I had just come back from a 3-day hunting trip up in the mountains. No service, no distractions. Just me, a tent, and enough time to breathe. When I got home, something felt off. The house smelled like fresh pine cleaner. Kayla always did that when she was nervous. The living room throw blanket was folded the wrong way, not how she normally did it with the crease tucked in. I know that sounds petty, but when you've been married long enough, the little things stick. She came to the door smiling, kissed me like nothing was wrong, told me dinner was already in the oven, that she missed me, that the weather turned while I was gone, and maybe we should light the fire tonight. It was all normal. Too normal. The kind of normal someone rehearses. Her eyes flicked behind me when I stepped inside, just a quick glance past my shoulder, like she was checking something. I set my bag down in the laundry room. That's when I noticed the faint smell of cologne that wasn't mine. Not strong, just a trace. Mixed with pine cleaner and something else, cheap breath mints, maybe? I didn't say anything. Just walked back out like I hadn't noticed a thing. That night, we ate her lasagna in front of the fireplace. She talked about her garden, about some neighbor's dog that kept digging under the fence, about Wes bringing over moonshine the other night. My stomach turned a little at that one. Not because of Wes, he's been my hunting buddy for years, but because she said it so casually, like it didn't matter. Wes came by. I asked, sipping my sweet tea. Yeah, she said, eyes still on the TV. Dropped off some venison from his last trip. Wednesday, I think. Maybe Thursday. You know him. He doesn't stay long. She took a bite and chewed too fast. Avoided eye contact. I nodded and let it go. The next morning, I went out to the shed to clean my rifle. She came out with coffee, leaned against the doorframe, and said she was thinking of hosting a little fish fry next week for the neighbors. Said Wes might help with the grill. I smiled and said that sounded fine. But inside, something pulled tight. Later that afternoon, I stopped by the gas station where Daryl works. He's the one who sees everything before the rest of us even hear about it. You see Wes's truck around here much this week? I asked, pretending to look at fishing lures. Daryl raised an eyebrow. Yeah, a couple times. Thought he was out of town with you. I paused. No, he sat this trip out. Daryl nodded slowly, like that clicked. Well, he was here Wednesday. Think he bought charcoal and a 6-pack. Maybe some gum. Gum. Winter mint. Don't know why I remember that, but I do. I left with 2 bags of ice I didn't need. That evening, I cleaned out the garage and found a second beer bottle under the workbench trash can. Empty, familiar, and not mine. She cleaned up. Almost all of it. But not everything. Still, I said nothing. That night, she climbed into bed, wrapped her arms around me, and whispered, "You've been quiet today." Just tired, I said. But I wasn't tired. I was awake in every possible way. It was the next Thursday when I found it. She was out getting her nails done. Said something about a girl's night this weekend. Wanted to feel polished. Her voice had that practiced warmth again, the kind that made you question yourself if you weren't careful. I waited until her car left the driveway, watched it disappear down the gravel before heading back inside. I wasn't looking for anything, not directly, but something kept pulling me toward her side of the closet. The way she'd been folding her laundry tighter, the way her drawers had less clutter than usual. It was like she was staging the house, not living in it. Like something had already shifted in her mind, and I just hadn't caught up yet. Her top dresser drawer held the usual. Socks, old receipts, a half-used chapstick, but the second drawer was what caught me. There was a small bag tucked beneath a pair of leggings, the kind of gift bag you pick up from the dollar bin last minute when you've got a plan and not much time. I pulled it out slowly. Inside was a new wallet, still in the box. Leather. Black. Clean lines. And under it, a handwritten card in her loopy handwriting. Figured it was time you stopped carrying around that old mess. Thought of you the second I saw it. No name. No date. Not my wallet. I stared at it for a while, the weight of it thick in my hands. My own wallet was worn but solid, something she'd teased me about for years. One day I'm just going to throw that thing out, she'd joke. But she never did. And she never bought me a new one either. I knew right then it wasn't for me. And I had a feeling it wasn't for Father's Day or some distant cousin's birthday either. I didn't get angry. I got quiet. I took the wallet out of the box and made one small change. Slipped a photo of me and Kayla from an old fishing trip into the inside slot. Just visible enough that if someone opened it, they'd pause. Then I resealed the box, folded the tissue, and slid the bag right back into the drawer like nothing had happened. That night, she came home humming, all smiles. "You wouldn't believe how long the wait was," she said, holding up freshly painted nails. "But I feel brand new. Looking sharp," I said, setting down my beer. She kissed my cheek and wandered off to change, not even noticing the shift in my voice. The next morning, the gift bag was gone. I checked the drawer while she showered. It was empty, everything back in its original place. Socks, chapstick, folded neat. I spent the next few days watching her more closely. Her phone never left her side anymore, not even when she watered the plants. She got dressed quicker, wore her hair down more often. Saturday night, she said she was meeting some friends at the steakhouse in town. Didn't offer names. I didn't ask. I just nodded and said, "Have fun." At 9:37, I drove past the steakhouse. The parking lot was half full. Her car wasn't there. At 9:52, I passed by Wes's place. His truck wasn't in the driveway. His lights were off, but mine were still on when she walked through the door at 10:25, holding a takeout bag and saying, "Hope you're hungry. I figured you wouldn't cook." I looked at the bag. It was from a diner 10 miles away in the opposite direction of the steakhouse. "Was it just you?" I asked. She didn't blink. Tanya flaked. I didn't want to sit there alone. She set the bag on the counter, pulled out 2 sandwiches, and smiled like it was any other night. I stared at her, trying to figure out where she'd hidden the guilt, how she'd made it look so much like love. But I didn't say a word. I just ate my sandwich in silence, knowing she was still wearing a mask. I wasn't done watching yet. By the time Sunday rolled around, I'd gotten used to pretending. Pretending I didn't notice the way Kayla was extra careful with her phone. Pretending I believed every name she dropped in conversation. Pretending I hadn't seen her slide that gift bag in her purse the day after I tampered with it. There was something freeing about watching a lie play out from the outside. You stop reacting. You start recording. Mentally, anyway. Every excuse. Every late return. Every shift in tone. That morning, she said she was going to help out at the church fundraiser. They need folks to serve plates and set up tables, she said, sipping her orange juice like we were still a team. Wes is bringing over his smoker for the pulled pork. I nodded, holding my coffee a little tighter. Wes always did love making an entrance. She laughed. He's just trying to help. Don't be grumpy. She kissed my forehead and left in her usual rush, keys jingling like wind chimes in a storm. I waited 5 minutes before grabbing my jacket. I wasn't ready to bust her. I just wanted to see. Just wanted to know if the pit in my stomach had a reason to keep twisting. The church was only 15 minutes away. I took the back road, past the hardware store, looped around behind the ball fields, and parked 2 streets over. Walked the rest of the way. When I got there, I spotted her almost immediately. Kayla was standing under a pop-up canopy, smiling wide, handing a paper plate to an older couple. She looked good, polished, like someone who had everything under control. Wes wasn't near her, though. He was off to the side, laughing with a group of men near the smoker, holding a pair of tongs like he was running a cooking show. I watched them both. No touching, no secret glances, nothing that screamed betrayal. I didn't want to admit it, but a piece of me felt relief. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe everything was just noise in my head. Until the break. Around noon, folks started drifting toward the tables to eat. Kayla stepped out from behind the serving station and made a beeline for the church building. I followed her path from a distance, curious. She disappeared inside through the side door, alone. 2 minutes later, Wes looked around, set his tongs down, and headed in the same direction. I moved faster than I meant to, slipped around the corner, stepped quietly through the back door, and listened. Voices. Hers. His. "Did you bring it?" she asked. "Yeah," Wes said. "It's in my truck." "What did you think of it?" "Real nice," he said. "You sure it wasn't too much?" "No. You deserved it." My fist tightened. I stepped around the corner, ready to confront them. They weren't touching, just standing a few feet apart, Kayla leaning against the counter, was holding a paper bag in one hand. The wallet box was peeking out of the top. Kayla looked up, startled. "James," she said, blinking. "Hey," I replied, keeping my voice level. "Didn't expect to see y'all sneaking off." Wes held up the bag. "She got me a birthday gift," he said quickly. She didn't want to make a thing out of it in front of everyone. I looked at Kayla. Her face didn't crumble, didn't twitch, just calm, like she had rehearsed this moment just in case. "I was going to tell you," she said too smoothly. "He helped fix the fence last month when you were gone. It's nothing weird." "You didn't mention his birthday," I replied. She shrugged. "It's not like we throw him a party. He's just our neighbor." I stared at them, at the distance between them, at how carefully it was being kept. If something had been going on, they were hiding it well. Too well. I didn't want to admit it, but maybe this wasn't the moment. "Right," I finally said. "Guess I'm just tired." Kayla stepped toward me. "Come sit. Eat something." I nodded and followed her back outside. But all through lunch, something kept gnawing at the back of my mind. That wasn't guilt in her eyes when I walked in. It was preparedness. Like she knew I might show up and planned for it. And if that was the cover, then what was she really hiding? The church fundraiser faded from memory by Monday, but the feeling it left behind didn't. I kept replaying the moment I stepped into that room. The way Kayla didn't flinch, didn't stumble, didn't even blink too hard. It was too perfect. And while I'd almost convinced myself the gift was innocent, I couldn't shake the way Wes never looked me in the eye after that. Something about it just stuck, like a bad tune that won't leave your head. Still, I let it ride for a few days. Acted like I dropped it. We cleaned the porch together, made plans for an end-of-month cookout, even spent a quiet evening playing cards at the kitchen table like things were just as they'd always been. But it all felt rehearsed, like she was filling the silence with rituals we'd once done out of habit, now done out of guilt. Or worse, out of strategy. It was Thursday morning when the next piece dropped. She left for her usual run to town, claiming she needed gardening gloves and a new hummingbird feeder. I nodded from the garage and said, "Take your time." 20 minutes later, I remembered I'd left my wallet in her car the night before. I called her once. No answer. Figured I'd swing by town and catch her at the hardware store. She always started there, but her truck wasn't parked out front. I checked the garden supply shop down the street. Nothing. So I waited, sitting in the lot, sipping a bitter gas station coffee. After 20 minutes, her truck rolled past the main road, headed back toward home. No bags in the front seat. No me feather. I followed. She didn't notice me a few cars back. I turned onto the gravel road just after she did and coasted until I saw her pull into the drive. I stayed out of sight, watching her walk calmly into the house with nothing in her hands but her purse. She hadn't gone shopping at all. When I walked through the door 10 minutes later, she was already at the sink, rinsing a glass like she'd been there the whole time. "Find what you needed in town?" I asked. "Yep," she said without missing a beat. "Grab gloves and a new sprayer for the hose." "No feather." They were out, so they'd get more in by next week. She dried her hands and looked right at me. Calm. That same polished composure. I nodded. Good timing. I almost came by to say hi. Her smile didn't waver. That would have been sweet. We both stood there for a moment, neither of us blinking. Then she turned and walked down the hall like it was any other day. But I knew now. She was lying. And lying well. That night, I got up around 2 in the morning and went out to the garage. Sat there in the dark with the door cracked open and the crickets chirping outside. I started listing it all out in my head. The gift. The absence of the wallet now that it was delivered. Her clothes being folded too neat. The way she texted more now, but never laughed out loud while doing it. The fake errands. The overly warm mornings. The silence when I walked into her room. She was building a new version of herself. The kind where I didn't exist. The next day, I checked her calendar on the fridge. The one she used more as a decoy now than a planner. Saturday, she'd written cleaning out storage with a little heart drawn beside it. She told me she wanted to go through the old junk we never sorted after the move. It sounded noble enough, but nothing in our garage was a mystery to her. And she sure didn't need 4 hours blocked off for it. So I made my own plans. I told her I'd be heading out for a few hours to grab supplies for the cookout. Told her I'd leave her to the mess. "Appreciate it," she said. "Gives me space to think." I smiled. Take all the time you need. Because come Saturday, I'd finally start closing in. Not with shouting, but with quiet clarity. Saturday came with a heavy stillness, the kind of heat that makes the air feel thick before noon. I told Kayla I'd be heading out early, said I had to swing by the supply store and maybe check in on the Joneses water line. She didn't question it. She barely looked up from her coffee, just waved me off and said, "Leave the truck. I'll need to haul some of the storage bins later." I nodded and left her with the keys. Didn't even flinch, because I wasn't headed to the store or the Joneses. I circled back down the service road behind our property and parked just out of view, where the trees thickened along the back fence line. I'd brought binoculars, a packed lunch, and silence. If she was going to lie again, I was going to see it with my own eyes. The first hour passed with nothing but birdsong and wind rustling through dry branches. Around 11, I saw her walk out to the garage in jeans and a loose tank top, holding a clipboard like she was checking inventory. She looked around twice, once too quickly, once too carefully. That was enough to tell me she knew she was about to do something that didn't hold up under sunlight. 20 minutes later, a truck pulled in, not Wes's. A dark silver Ford the first didn't recognize. Out stepped a man in a baseball cap, sunglasses on even though the garage shaded most of the driveway. He didn't knock. He didn't wave. She walked right up to him and hugged him. I tensed. She said something. He laughed. They disappeared into the garage, side door sliding shut behind them. I checked my watch. Waited. 15 minutes. Then 30. Then 45. No one came out. That garage had no real storage to speak of. We'd cleared it all in March. The only thing in there now was an old workbench, a folding chair, and 2 unused coolers. Nothing that required a visit this long. I crept along the fence line and found a small gap I'd forgotten about. A loose panel Kayla had said we should fix but never got around to. I peeked through. The garage door was still shut. I couldn't hear anything, but I saw movement, a shadow crossing the window near the back corner. They were still inside. At that point, I didn't need to see more to know. I backed away slowly, careful not to crack any branches underfoot. My breath stayed even. My pulse didn't spike. I wasn't surprised. I was steady, calm like the still before a storm finally breaks. I drove into town and picked up a case of beer and a new propane tank, just like I said I would. Spoke to 2 neighbors along the way. Even managed a small joke at the checkout counter. I played my part like a man who had nothing to hide, because she needed me to look predictable until I wasn't. When I came back that afternoon, the silver truck was gone. Kayla was out back, rinsing her hands with the garden hose. "Storage cleaned out?" I asked, setting the bag down on the porch. "Yep," she said, tying her hair up like she'd actually been working. "Found some old photos, too. We should go through them tonight." I forced a smile. "Sure. Sounds good." She looked me in the eye, holding that easy gaze like nothing was cracked beneath it. But I knew. That night, after she went to bed, I went through the garage. Quiet. Patient. I looked for anything out of place. I found a crumpled napkin in the corner behind the cooler. Smelled faintly of cologne and something sweeter, maybe gum. There were 2 water bottles on the bench, both half full, with beads of condensation still clinging to them. I took a picture. Evidence, not emotion. I wasn't planning on confronting her tomorrow. I wasn't planning on yelling or slamming doors. No, I had something else in mind. If she wanted to act, I'd let her finish the scene. Then I'd close the curtain. By Sunday morning, I wasn't wondering anymore. I was watching. She moved like a woman who thought her tracks were clean. The lies came smoother now, too. "I might take a walk later," she said, like she hadn't just spent half a Saturday hiding someone in our garage. "Need to stretch my legs, clear my head a bit." I nodded like I cared, like I didn't already know she'd be stretching her alibi more than her legs. After she left, I waited 5 minutes, then drove down to the neighbor's old hay shed, the one that backed up to the edge of the trail she always said she used when she needed to think. From there, I had a full view of the path that curved around the creek and up behind our woods. At 10:13, I saw her. She wasn't alone. It was Wes, the same Wes who sat beside me every deer season, who lent me his trailer last spring without blinking, who shook my hand after dinner 3 nights a week like he wasn't crawling through my life behind my back. There he was, walking close, talking soft like this wasn't their first Sunday stroll. She wore that loose white sweater I always liked. Now I hated it. They moved like a pair who knew exactly where they were going. They turned off the trail at the bend, where the pine trees thickened, a spot out of view from the road and the houses. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. I waited. 10 minutes. Then 15. At 23 minutes, they emerged again. Her hair was a little tousled. His hat was gone, stuffed into his back pocket. They didn't speak as they walked back toward the road. Just a bump of shoulders. A shared smirk. I didn't flinch. I raised my phone and snapped 2 photos as they passed. Not for leverage, for closure. By the time I made it back to the house, she was already in the kitchen, reheating soup. Felt good to get out, she said. Just me and the trees. She didn't know her face looked different, relaxed, looser around the eyes. She thought she was winning. You make it far? I asked. Just a bend and back, she replied. Didn't want to overdo it. Good call, I said. Weather's supposed to turn this week. She nodded. Maybe we can grill one night before it does. Sounds like a plan. She smiled and walked past me, a spoon in one hand, casual as anything. But something shifted in me then, not anger, not shock. Just decision. The planning phase was over. Now came the part one could control. I went to the shop that night and pulled out an old box of things I hadn't touched in years. Scrap wood, some rope, a few rusted nails I'd meant to toss, but never did. Then I flipped open my notebook and drew up a list. Not a revenge plot, just a new kind of invitation. Monday, I stopped by the corner store and ran into Callie. We hadn't talked in a long while. Old high school friend, good people, sweet as Georgia tea, and just as sharp as she needed to be. She'd gone through her own mess not long ago. Divorce, some town gossip, nothing she hadn't handled with grace. We chatted by the drink cooler, swapped a few updates, and I casually mentioned I might be hosting something soon. Something like a get-together, she asked. Something like that, I said. A little fire, some drinks. Maybe something worth showing up for. She smiled. If there's peach cobbler involved, you know I'm there. I'll make sure of it. We parted with a handshake that lingered just long enough to count. By the time I got home, Kayla was folding laundry and humming. How was your day? She asked. Productive, I said. Thinking we might want to invite some folks over next weekend. Haven't done a bonfire in a while. She perked up. That could be fun. You want to call Wes? He's usually got extra firewood. My heart didn't skip. My hands didn't shake. Yeah, I said. Invite him. He'd be perfect for this. She didn't catch the tone, just nodded and smiled, because she still thought I didn't know. But I did. And next weekend, everyone else would too. I spent the rest of the week building that bonfire like it was the centerpiece of something sacred. Took the chainsaw to a few fallen limbs out back, chopped them down clean, and stacked them neatly by the pit. Hauled dry brush from the shed, laid it in tight at the base. Even found old tiki torches in the barn and lined them around the field like runway lights. I wanted it to look like a celebration because it was. Not of something new, but of something ending. Kayla offered to help once or twice. I told her I had it under control. She nodded, kept to herself. She'd been humming again, brighter, looser, like she'd finally convinced herself whatever game she was playing was safe, tucked behind closed doors and half-truths. She had no clue I'd seen it all. No clue I'd watched her disappear into the trees with Wes and come out changed. She thought she was still ahead, but the finish line wasn't hers to cross. By Friday, invites had already spread. Nothing formal, just word of mouth, passed along like gossip at the feed store. James is throwing a fire, they said, bringing back those old fall get-togethers. I kept it casual on the outside, like it was just another rural Saturday with friends and beer. But inside, I had already decided who was going to show up and who was about to be shown for what they were. Callie messaged me Saturday morning. Still good for tonight? I wrote back. More than good. Can't wait. When I pulled up to her place that evening to pick her up, she came out in a flannel shirt that matched mine almost perfectly. She grinned when she noticed. We're gonna look planned, she joked. I leaned against the truck and said, maybe we are. The sun was just starting to dip by the time we got to the field. Folks were already gathering, coolers and beds of trucks, lawn chairs unfolding in the dirt, dogs weaving through legs. Kayla was inside, getting her casserole ready, still clueless. I set up the grill, cracked a beer, made the rounds. The air was thick with smoke and laughter and something else. Anticipation. I timed it all out. Let them settle in. Let the night feel normal just long enough. Then I made my entrance. I revved the four-wheeler loud as thunder and came tearing down the driveway with Callie on the back, her arms wrapped around me like she'd been there forever. People turned. Laughter quieted. I saw heads shift toward Kayla, who had just stepped onto the porch, dish in hand, smile frozen as she caught sight of us. I pulled up to the center of the yard, killed the engine, and stood up slowly. "Evening, folks," I said loud enough for the crowd to hear. "Appreciate y'all coming out tonight." Callie hopped off and brushed the dust from her jeans. I took her hand and kissed her forehead. "She's bringing dessert," I added, "and I'm bringing closure." Silence rippled through the yard. Not uncomfortable, just sharp. Everyone turned toward Kayla. Her face had drained of color, casserole forgotten in her hands. I looked right at her and smiled. "You like backdoor visits," I said, calm as still water. "I like fresh starts." That was when Wes, who'd been leaning by the cooler with a plastic cup, suddenly disappeared into the dark without a word. Not a goodbye, not a glance. Kayla turned, stormed back inside without a sound. The screen door slammed. Somewhere behind me, someone laughed. Then another. Callie squeezed my hand gently. "Well," she said, "that was something." "Yep," I replied. "It sure was." We stayed by the fire for hours. People came up, clapped me on the shoulder, poured drinks, shared stories. The air changed after that. Lighter, clearer. Kayla never came back out. And Wes, no one's seen him since. But me? I finally breathed again. The morning after the bonfire, the house was silent. Not the peaceful kind. More like the quiet that hangs in the air after a door's been slammed one too many times. I made coffee without looking over my shoulder. Ate breakfast without asking who wanted what. There was nothing left to offer. Kayla didn't come out of the bedroom until almost 10, hair messy, wearing the same clothes from the night before. Her eyes found mine across the room, and for the first time in a long while they looked unsure. "I didn't expect you to do that," she said quietly. I didn't answer. She stood there for a beat, arms crossed. "You humiliated me. Still nothing for me." She shifted her weight. "You really think putting on a show in front of half the county makes you right?" I finally looked up from my mug. I didn't need to prove I was right. I just needed to stop pretending you weren't wrong. That landed. Her mouth opened like she wanted to argue, but nothing came out. She took a few steps forward, lowering her voice like softer meant safer. "James, whatever you think you saw, it's not what it looks like." "Wes, it was complicated." I stood up then. Calm. Slow. "It's only complicated if I pretend not to know the truth. But I do. You lied to me. Over and over." Her eyes filled fast. "It wasn't supposed to happen like that." "But it did," I said. "And you let it keep happening." She started crying then. Real tears this time. Not the kind she'd used before to stall a question or redirect a fight. "You don't understand. He was there when you weren't." That one hit strange. Like she'd rewritten the story to make herself the victim. "I was always here," I said. "You were just somewhere else." She reached out, and I stepped back. "I can fix this," she said, voice cracking. "Whatever you need. I'll go to counseling. I'll cut him off. I'll do anything." I shook my head. "You already did everything. That's the problem." "James," she said again, closer to a whisper now, "you love me." "I loved you," I said flat and final. She sank onto the couch, head in her hands. "Please," she said, almost choking on it. "We've built a life, and you bulldozed it for weekend walks and garage doors." Silence followed, thick and long. Eventually, she looked up, red-eyed and shaking. "What do you want me to say?" "Nothing," I said. "I don't need anything from you now." I left the room. Over the next few days, she tried everything. Made dinner from scratch. Cleaned every inch of the house. Left notes on the fridge like we were dating again. At first, I ignored it. Then I started moving things, my tools, some clothes, the safe box with the deed, and the old photos, out to the barn. When she noticed, she finally asked, "What are you doing?" "Making room," I said. "For what?" "For someone who doesn't lie when they say they love me." That night, she cried behind the bathroom door. I heard it, didn't move. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't heartbroken. I was simply done. On Sunday, She cornered me before church. You're throwing me away. No, I said. You threw yourself away. I just finally noticed. Is there someone else? She asked. Does it matter? I said. Her silence told me it did. I let the front door close behind me without another word. From that moment on, I stopped checking her mood before speaking. Stopped pretending we were just in a rough patch. The truth had arrived and settled into the floorboards. She had to live with it. I already was. It's been 6 months since the fire. The laughter, the crowd, the look on Kayla's face, that all faded quicker than I thought it would. Not because it didn't matter, but because the part of me that needed to hold on to it finally let go. Small towns have long memories, sure, but even they move on when the next scandal comes rolling through. Folks don't talk about what happened that night anymore. They talk about the new hunting lease up north. They talk about the county fair. They talk about how I've been smiling more. I guess I have. The house feels different now. Not just quieter, cleaner somehow. Not spotless, not perfect. Just lighter. I move her things out in stages. First her clothes, then the photos, then the stuff she never really used but insisted on keeping. The lemon zester, the yoga mat, the dusty craft kit stacked in the hall closet. She didn't come back for most of it. I left a few boxes on the porch when she stopped by that one time. She didn't ask for a second chance. Not anymore. She just stood there, looking around like it didn't feel like hers anymore. It didn't. Callie and I talk most evenings now. Nothing heavy. Just porch talks. She brings over blackberry tea, or I'll stop by her place after closing up the shed. We don't rush it. Don't label it. There's something solid in the way we speak. No masks, no games, no pretending to like songs we never listened to. She's kind without trying to be impressive. Funny without needing the room to clap. That's enough for now. More than enough. I've started carving again. Used to be a hobby before the distractions piled up. I set up a bench in the barn and work with my hands until they ache. Made a duck decoy last week that actually floats. Working on a rocking chair next. Something solid that lasts. Something I can look at and say, that came from me. Feels good to build something that doesn't lie to you. I go fishing again. Not because I need the quiet, but because I enjoy it. There's a difference. I used to go to get away. Now I go just because the water feels right. Sometimes I don't catch a thing and still come back lighter than when I left. That's how I know I'm healing. Some mornings, I catch myself walking slower, looking at the way the sun hits the trees behind the house, the way the gravel crunches under boots. I used to miss those sounds. Now they greet me, like a rhythm I forgot I knew. People still ask about her once in a while. You hear from Kayla? They'll say, not sure if it's safe to ask. I just smile and shake my head. Not lately. And that's enough. I don't add anything. Don't drag her name. Don't need to. Life has a way of handling what's left behind when you stop trying to carry it yourself. The fire pit's still there, blackened stones and ash long since swept away. But I keep the space clear. Maybe I'll light another one this fall. No speeches this time. Just good people, warm drinks, and the sound of fire cracking in the dark. No need for closure when you've already stepped past it. There's one last thing I kept, something small. It's a keychain, shaped like a compass. Kayla gave it to me on our 3rd anniversary. Said it was to keep me from getting lost. I found it in a drawer after she left. Thought about throwing it out, but then I looked at it a little longer, and I realized it did point me somewhere after all. I keep it in my truck now, not as a reminder of her, but as a reminder of where I'll never go back to, and where I'm heading next. Thank you for listening to the end. I hope you enjoyed it very much. Don't forget to give a like, and tell us in the comments what you would do in such a situation.